We are going to talk about state design pattern. This is a behavioral pattern. State pattern allows an object to alter its behavior when its internal state changes. This pattern is close to the concept of finite state machine. The state pattern can be interpreted as a strategy pattern, which is able to switch a strategy through invocation of methods defined in the pattern interface. But in this pattern, we create objects which represents different states and a context object whose behavior varies as its state object changes. Let's take an example where we have two states, run state and end state, that will implement state interface, which has a method called execute, and we have a context that will have the state and context constructor and get and set state methods. And finally, we have a state test that will have the main method to execute this scenario. Let's go ahead and build this example. Let me open my Visual Studio Code and create a new file called state.java. This would be an interface. Public void execute method that will have context. We haven't created the context class. Let's create a context class, context.java, that will have private state, again, public context. This is the constructor. We will set the state as null. Let's create public void set state, and we'll pass the state. Here we will say this dot state equals state. Similarly, we will have a getter method, public, return type would be state, get state, and return state. So this is the context class. Let's create the two states. One would be run state.java that will implement state interface. You have to override method execute with context. Let's print a statement here, system.out.println. This is in run state. Let's set this context dot set state, and we will pass this state, that is run state. Similarly, we would create end state.java that will have, first let's implement state and public void execute context. In that, let's print system.out.println. This is in end state, and context dot set state this. So we are setting end state here, and let's create our final class called state test.java that will have a main method, and let's create context object first, new context, and create a run state equals new run state, and let's execute run state dot execute, and we'll pass the context. Initially, the context would be null. System dot out dot print line. We'll print context dot get state. Let's go and print end state. End state equals new end state dot execute, and we are passing the context. Similarly, we would like to print get state here, context dot get state. Let's print this before initializing. So if you see here, we are creating the context and printing the state within the context, and we are executing run state, again printing the context dot state. Similarly, we are executing the last end state and end execute and printing the context here. Let's go ahead and compile all the files, javac *.java. So compile all the files within this folder. Now let us go and run our state test, which has the main method. If you see here, first time when we printed the state within the context, we would get null because the context doesn't have anything. We are setting it as null. After running the state, when we executed this and passing the context, this context will have the run state. So this is in run state, and it is printing the run state object. And again, after that is done, we are creating end state and executing this and passing the context. Again, within this context, previously we had run state. Now, after executing this, it would change it to end state. So that is the reason if you see here, this is an end state is being printed with the end state object. This is how we could pass context to various states or various stage within our process. Hope this was helpful. Thank you for watching.